What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode and edition of the Wrestling Hour right here on the premier YouTube channel. This is Dave Sturchio. That's Josh Shernoff. We hope everybody is enjoying their new year. I hope you're all sticking to your resolutions. Are you? I mean, it doesn't look like it.
What?
I'm just saying.
This is how we're starting things off for today's episode.
And HR has been contacted immediately. Listen, we got a loaded show today. No banger matches, but we do have something very interesting. So AEW, All Elite Wrestling, they're celebrating their 5-year anniversary. And first of all, bravo, right? Because look, there's been many companies out there. You're late. You're very late on the, it's a slow clap. Are you trying to get the crowd involved?
There we go.
Who hates that?
5 years.
You know who hates that more than anything else in the world? A guy that's on the show that we're going to throw to today.
Good.
And I'll explain it. But anyway, AEW celebrating 5 years, and bravo to them, because there's been a lot of companies that have tried to do what they're doing and have failed and fallen flat on their face and just didn't know what to do. But Tony Khan and company have put together a fantastic crew, a fantastic roster, and what they're doing on the day-to-day and the week-to-week is something you can't sneeze at, man. There's a lot going on at AEW.
That's the other company you're not allowed to sneeze. But the cool thing about today and what we have for you with this panel, this is really all of them, the original people and some of the people who are there now, who played a role in creating Dynamite, creating that show. Now, I personally was there at the very first Dynamite.
I was not.
I was hosting the live 2-hour international pre-show where I got to...
just you?
Yeah.
By yourself?
Yep. Like
All Elite Wrestling was like, hey, Josh Shernoff, you're the guy. We need you.
Do you not watch anything I do?
I tend to avoid you until we have to be together in this juncture.
That's hurtful.
I mean, it's the truth, but
you
want me to be honest, or you want me to just lie to you?
Well,
but anyway,
so right now, here, show right there. That's me and MJF. You can see right there in the video.
Okay. I've also met MJF, and we're just dropping names all over. Me and MJF went to
It's not
Alaska
a meeting
together.
MJF. That's me and MJF talking, sitting in the stands at the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. before the very first AEW Dynamite. This is...
Wasn't Dynamite? I thought the first one was in Jacksonville. Am I wrong on that one?
You're very wrong.
All right. Shows how much I know.
You're thinking about what they're... So here's the thing with this 5-year celebration.
Well, the
5-year anniversary is not from the first show. It's not even from the first pay-per-view. The 5-year anniversary is from that press conference in the parking lot in Jacksonville.
What a moment.
This past September, we hosted an event on Premier Streaming Network called Starrcast VI.
Yes.
And
in Chi-Town.
You were there.
I was there.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, actually.
Yeah, I invited you.
And I specifically thank Conrad Thompson for that, obviously.
Nah.
Not him. Conrad, my man.
Nope. It was all me. Nah. Conrad actually asked specifically that you be removed.
Oh, did
And I put my foot down. I said, Conrad, no friend of mine will be removed.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. But here we go. Listen, tonight it's all about celebrating the 5-year anniversary of AEW, All Elite Wrestling, with this stage show from said Starrcast from Chicago. It's creating Dynamite. Enjoy.
My name is Chris Harrington. I am the Senior Vice President of Business Strategy with AEW. I have the distinction of being with the company since it started, and so I've had a very fun experience of getting to know all of these people here, and also seeing this company grow literally from an idea and emails with Tony Khan all the way to flying to Japan and signing some contracts to having a giant event in Jacksonville where we kicked it all off, and then eventually, of course, running our incredible pay-per-view events, and lastly, starting television in October of 2019. A very memorable time for us. So maybe I'll just kick it off starting with Chris Daniels. You've been with us since the very beginning.
Day one, indeed.
And so far, this company has sent you to China, to Japan, to Germany, to Canada, some very exotic locations.
Yes, some very wild locales.
Maybe you can just talk about the transition from going from the pay-per-views into television. How different is that for you as someone working behind the scenes?
Well, honestly, my experience from doing stuff with TNA, doing stuff with Ring of Honor, I was sort of prepared to do television and prepared to do pay-per-views. So, I mean, it wasn't a very hard transition for myself, but I did recognize that a lot of the people that we were bringing on board as far as talent, this was their first foray into national television, and so there was an adjustment period for a lot of guys who were just used to going out to an independent show in wrestling and not worrying about time and cameras and the like, that they needed to be sort of taught and pointed, directed, and like, okay, you need to do this, this has to happen, this has to happen. So, I mean, in that respect, there was a transition period for a lot of people to sort of figure out the difference between wrestling in front of 200 people in a VFW hall or a Knights of Columbus building, than going to be in front of 100,000 people on television. You know what I mean? So I mean, for that period of time, there was that transition, and guys like myself and Jerry, I feel like we were sort of integral in letting people know how to sort of tailor their work towards television.
Wonderful. Mr. Peck, you've been with us for several years as a general counsel. AEW loves stunts. We love wild things. Is there any one particular ask that we've had where there have been inventions where then Tony or someone from the creative team says, hey, I want a helicopter for Don Callis, or I would like live goats in the Chris Jericho celebration, or other things where it suddenly fell on legal to try to figure out how the heck do we do this behind the scenes?
The absolute best answer to that, Chris, and thank you for asking, and it's truly one of my favorite stories that I tell other lawyers, is I got a call, and I can't remember who called me. I would love to remember this, but it was a very panicked call. It was maybe 10 minutes before showtime. I wasn't in the building, and they were panicking because the question was, can we bring a hatchet to the ring? And I said, a hatchet? What are we doing with a hatchet? And they explained the stunt in the whole 9 yards, and I went, no, guys, we can't bring a hatchet to the ring. The other favorite stunt, anytime that fire gets brought up as well, too, it always gives me great pause because fire is one of those things you cannot control. So that is usually our venue partners look and go, I don't think that's a great idea either. So definitely the hatchet story was the one that I'll always remember, as it was definitely a crash course in what to expect as an attorney for professional wrestling.
Wonderful. Yes, I would say the time Cody Rhodes and Andrade El Idolo wrestled with some fire, there was certainly a very exciting day for all of us.
I was going to say, I didn't want to say it, Chris, but I'm glad you mentioned, because that's the other one that stands out. That's what I was referencing with the fire. So.
Yep.
And actually, on that note, really quick, I forgot about this. I was on another panel, and I was actually sitting next to a venue rep, and he kind of looked at me and goes, oh, wait a second, I know who you are. And that was a reference to that, the fire issue. Yeah, that's us. That's us.
I was going to say, a lot of people don't realize that the fire marshal plays a critical role in AEW. And when we were taping in Jacksonville, it was always a battle with the fire marshal for how late were they willing to stay if we were going to keep doing pyro. And most prominently, for those of a few of us here probably know what I'm going to mention, Stadium Stampede, the very first one, we taped all night long. Literally, as the sun came up is when we did that final shot. And the fire marshal had stayed there the whole night because we were going to do fireworks at the end of the night. And we kept telling him, 10 minutes more, 10 minutes more. And then there was a rainstorm in the middle of it, and we stopped for an hour and a half. And then we literally put it up on the Jumbotron, the position that everybody was in, repositioned everybody, wiped it all down. And if you watch that match, you would not know unless you were there about that, like, 90-minute cut that we did just to survive.
The sunrise was the deadline, though.
Yes, the sunrise. We figured
the last shot is the good guys win, and here's fireworks. This is great, but everyone's like looking at this like the sun comes up in 45 minutes. It's 5:50 a.m. or whatever. So that actually helped us. Yeah, get it done. You were there, right?
That was my first day. Yeah, first day on the job.
The one thing you learn is artificial deadlines are very important in getting things done.
What are things you can control? Yeah, a lot of things. The rain, nope. Yeah, the sunrise, nope. Right. So those things sometimes help shepherd us to destinations.
I'm going to skip around. I'm going to go over to Raph here so he doesn't feel like I'm ignoring him here. Raphael, you've been working with us for a long time, probably since the very, very beginning, I want to say.
Yeah, it was June of 2019, so I was official hire, but I was at Double or Nothing, too, as a venue rep.
And so maybe you can just talk a little bit about in your role of helping us select locations, working with Tony on that. What are some of the unique places that AEW has chosen to run, doing television, doing pay-per-views, that maybe were venues that never had even hosted wrestling before?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, and it's around the corner, our third edition of Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium. That was a concept that we really embraced. We wanted to have a New York City venue. We were in discussions with each and every one of the New York City venues, but Tony and I had both collectively thought about Arthur Ashe as a possibility. It's something that I always, when I was at WWE, thought would be a great venue to host pro wrestling. So we embarked on it, and we pursued it. And we, there were some challenges that we had to get across and complete to have that show. And one was getting the city of New York to give us a check mark on it. It's on city parkland, so I had to meet with local council members to pursue that. Thankfully, this council member Francisco Moya is a big fan and big proponent of bringing sports into the area. So that helped out, and the USTA and Danny Zausner there were incredible. They wanted to have the show, so we were ready to go. We were going to, we contemplated having a pay-per-view there in our infancy. We decided to hold back on that because of weather, because even though it's enclosed, there are some weather elements, and we're ready to go. Right after the pandemic date, it was going to be in the spring of 2020, and pandemic hit, so it was a secret we really had to hold on to, and when we put out the news, which was June 16th, actually, 2021. It was big, and it hit the mark, and it was a beautiful show. It was a flagship show, and it's our venue in New York City, and it's we got great partners. The fans responded, and we hope everyone comes back again on September 20th. So it was a challenge. It was an idea, and it was an idea that took a lot of civic help, municipal help, and we pulled it off from a production team standpoint too, and we look forward to doing it again.
Wonderful, and of course we were the first people to run the new Wembley Stadium, and as a wrestling company.
That was incredible, and I want to just mention some folks who helped out in that process too. Our partners at Activists, led by Bernie Cahill and his great assistant Red Tanner. In addition to helping me in getting the ball rolling in our day in and day out, next time around, let's have some females represented here too, okay? So I just want to say that. Linda Laludis, who our new VP of marketing, we really work collectively with Live Nation UK, and that's something we look to do moving forward too, and having these entertainment conglomerates to help us do some heavy lifting and parlay the booking. But it was a process. It was a great process. It reminded me when earlier in my career, I worked with the FIFA World Cup and establishing that tournament in 1994 at Giant Stadium, and that conception from zero to fruition of what happened last Sunday in Wembley, it brought back a lot of memories in that regard. So it was fabulous.
It was unexpectedly huge. I think when we did the moonshot to say we were going to run Wembley, we were expecting tens of thousands of people, but I don't think there was a single person here who said, "Yep, we're going to sell it out." Yeah. That was not really on our mind originally, and to see that momentum was amazing.
No doubt, Chris. Realistically, I mean, we were, budget-wise, we thought a show of that magnitude with our best roster of talent, possibly 30, 40,000. I mean, that was our realistic goal, and when we got out of the gate and surpassed that, we knew we were onto something, and took a life of its own. I think it was astute that we didn't do a tour around it in terms of the UK. We made it a pilgrimage for the fans all over Europe and United States. I mean, we had over 70 countries represented at the show. I think that was a key component to it. I mean, and moving forward, but we can, and Tony answered this in the media scrum, but we tie in other events leading up to or coming off it, possibly, but this was the right method of having folks come to that premier event as a pilgrimage, as a celebration, which it was, and we look forward to doing it August 25th next year.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Bryce a question, then I'm going to go to Jerry. Bryce, you wear a couple different hats, partially because you're bald, but one of them being...
People with hair wear hats. Well, you're right.
But
pot kettle hat.
Yes. So, as in your role as a referee, maybe you can just talk a little bit about just the structure of when you're in the ring with the communication system that we have set up, all the different people that you can be hearing as you're still trying to enforce the rules that we have in the secret rule book.
Oh, you don't have the rule? You haven't seen the rule book?
Well,
you don't have a copy? So we wear an earpiece, which is easy to see because I'm bald.
Yes. As noted.
As noted. And we also have a talk-back system, which we didn't have initially, but unfortunately...
What do you mean a talk-back system?
So there's a microphone on my lapel that we didn't have when we first started, that we added when we realized it would be helpful for us to be able to talk back. So in our ear, I will hear Tony, first and foremost, the director in the truck, who's Mr. Mansouri, Mr. Daryl Marshall, Mr. Andrew Thomas, and those are basically structural TV things. We're going to break in 10 seconds. We're coming out of break in 1 minute. Those are just dipping in and out. And then the coach, Jerry, sometimes. One of Jerry's catchphrases, I say this from love, when things are maybe going a little bit long in the tooth, Jerry will come in our ear and say, "Tell these guys to stop farting around." It's true.
I tell him, get to business.
Get to business. Quit farting around. He said, "Excuse me, Mr. Jericho, Mr. Moxley. Would you please do me a favor and stop farting around?" Jerry Lynn said it. But we can also talk back and forth to the medical staff, which is the newest addition of this. This is one of the reasons the microphone came. So there's tiers of these voices as well. So if Tony is talking, I hear Tony. He can drown out anyone else talking to us, as it should be. And if there's an issue, that's usually when these become the most. Someone's maybe injured, or they've lost time in their match. If everything goes perfectly, it should be very little communication. But that isn't always the case because it's live television. Especially when you're doing the main event of a live show, Dynamite, most importantly.
We have a deadline.
Right. There's, much like the sunrise, the show's going to end at 10 o'clock. So they are often the worst victims of getting time cut because they have the most opportunities for things to happen that may cut their time, which shouldn't happen. It does not happen often, but sometimes it does. So that's kind of where a lot of thinking on the fly comes in handy. So it's great to have Tony, who has an overarching picture. It's great to have the director as an overarching picture. But the most helpful for me, and I think I speak for the other referees, is having a coach like Jerry, because Jerry knows the match inside and out, probably better than me. And if we need to maybe take out the scenic route and take a direct route to get to somewhere, Jerry will, or all the coaches, Pat is a coach as well, will be very good at navigating those waters. Let's do this, let's not do this. Let's maybe go to commercial early and do this. We come back, we'll do this. And it's sometimes a lot of things going on, sometimes multiple people talking at once. And that was the hardest thing that took for me. I was a referee on the Independents for 17 years. Anytime there was an earpiece involved, it was not this kind of system with this kind of, it wasn't technologically as advanced. It wasn't as important because it wasn't live television. I did, Impact here and there, Ring of Honor here and there, but nothing like this. So that was the hardest thing it took me to get used to. And really, as many of us, we were thrown in the deep end of television wrestling. A lot of guys came straight from the Indies right onto Dynamite. And for me, I will not say many good things about a global pandemic, but when we went to Jacksonville, both as a travel manager and as a referee, that was kind of a great reset button because we had done, 4 months of Dynamite? 5 months of Dynamite?
Yeah, from October until March.
Yes. And it was just kind of figuring out on the fly and making it work. And then when we went to Jacksonville for 15 months, which was not ideal and not planned and not great, it kind of reset expectations. We were doing tape Dynamites. There was not the live crowd element, and I feel like, me at least, and I think others as well, kind of got their confidence and their sea legs under them. So when we went back on the road in July of 2021, we felt better equipped to have the whole picture, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Mr. Lin, you've been in a lot of locker rooms over your career, and you've worked for a lot of companies over your career. Do you want to maybe speak a little bit about what is it like backstage at AEW, especially in the role you have here, compared to maybe your time in ECW, WWE, WCW, ROH? I could go on and on and on.
Global, GWS.
Yes, and specifically against Global.
USWA.
Yeah.
When I tagged with Moses. I guess a lot of the companies you have a lot of freedom, a lot of creative freedom as far as your in-ring, what you do in the ring. So I guess the biggest comparison I would do would be with, can I say their names, our main competition?
I think most people are familiar with their name, but go ahead and say WWE.
So, and when, I was just flattered that they wanted me on board here, and they said, we wanted to be able to give the guys creative freedom in their matches and let them be them and paint their picture, which I agree with, because in WWE there's so much control about. When I had a match here one time, I had 2 coaches, 2 agents, and it was like they wanted to know every little thing I was doing in that match. Like, how many times are you going to punch this guy? I'm like, I don't know. We'll see what, it depends. What's he done to me? And how angry am I going to be? Or, whatever the situation constitutes. But so here, we let the guys be themselves, because you can't force them to be something they're not. And let them paint their picture, and be creative. Now, where I step in is if something sticks out like a sore thumb, I'm like, well, that really doesn't work here. And, I'll give them an example of, like, how I would do it. But
can you think of a specific example, Jerry?
Not really.
Okay.
Not off the top of my head.
No, that's fair.
Just something that doesn't make sense. Because I've had matches where something went wrong and didn't make sense, and you can hear the whole crowd do the collective Scooby, it's like, it's not a good feeling to hear that, too. And they don't know what exactly went wrong, but they could just tell something just wasn't right there. And so that's what I try and help these guys with. And I still want them to paint their picture, you be you. But I always give them an example, and I don't say, no, that sucks, and that's it. I always give an example of how it happened in my career and how I failed and I learned from it. So I'm not just shutting them down. And then I'll give them an example of how it could work and how I would do it. But I say, but do it, try and do it in that context, but do it with the moves you would do, because I can't do what you do. So that's the difference, I think, is we let them try and have a little more creative freedom in the ring.
Excellent. And then in your role as a coach and as a backstage mentor, what is the thing that you spend the most time realizing that you're doing at work? Is it administrative? Like, I see you come with these notes sometimes and things of that nature.
That's because I've been hitting the head a lot.
But what is it you feel like you get to do in terms of what you see on stage during the show that you'd say that's my fingerprint on the show this week?
For me, it'd be creating special moments to give the fans something to remember, because you're going to see every move in the book on the show, and you're not going to remember every move at the end of that show. You're not going to remember every single move that was hit. But I try and get them to create special moments to give the fans something to remember. And stick to your times.
Very important. Mr. Buck, in your role, can you maybe just give a very high-level overview of kind of how much do we put down on what's going to happen in the show in terms of what we're trying to administer as we go to television?
You mean like totality of the show, basically?
Well, just kind of like from the beginning of the day till now, thinking of a TV show like we just did with Collision or what on
Sure.
Dynamite.
For the most part, I think, every day is unique. And I think anyone up here can tell you that there's never been one day that's been like another. It's every day we don't know what challenges face us, and it's always unique. So in terms of like kind of structuring the show, again, not to mention another place, but its emphasis is on wrestling. Things are a little bit set up here. It's all about the in-ring action. So a lot of what we start with most of the time for Dynamite, you know what matches you're going to get for the most part. That's the preference of, hey, when you tune in, you're going to get these 4, 5, 6 matches. So those start as kind of the bricks. And then the connective tissue around it is, well, okay, we have to, if you notice, there's kind of differences between, WWE and AEW in terms of, commercial breaks. You may see a picture-in-a-picture segment, which means that, hey, when a match goes to TV, you'll see the little box and the match continues.
And we have 3 types, right? We have our straight commercial breaks where you don't see anything.
Right.
We have our picture-in-picture, or PIPs as we call them sometimes, where it's small, but what the audience doesn't maybe know in the US is internationally, it's still going. And so the announcers actually have to call that whole time there, and the wrestlers have to know that they're still, of course, being filmed. And then we have the hybrid, where it's a little bit of both of those, where some of the match is going to be showed, some of it is not. We don't do a lot of those anymore, but those come from the network in advance, and we know when they're structured in the show. So we already have this like pan, right, that we have to kind of bake around.
And because of that, it kind of changes everything in terms of laying out dare I say, a formula or a format, because on average, our matches are a lot longer than WWE. The emphasis is on the wrestling. So you'll see a lot of one-segment matches in WWE. Here, the emphasis will be, it's more normal to have a 2-segment match. My time over there was kind of rare, like, unless it depends where you were at the card, but often, most matches, 1 segment, and dare I say, that segment could be cut down in time to just 2 entrances. So here, it's very much an emphasis on the in-ring action. And that is what I feel that Tony values first and foremost. And then it goes, okay, what overarches the show? Where do we need our backstage segments to kind of hit the different stories going forward? And time is money. And it turns into, how do we get the best representation of the stories, of the talent, of hitting these different notes to push us forward? And it's probably the most challenging time around this time right now, because we had Wembley, and then a week later, tonight we got another pay-per-view. So you're trying to figure out a way to just keep everything moving forward. And a lot of times too, you may map this out. Heck, it happened last night where you realize, wait, we didn't really touch on this beat from this particular thing, so we need to do this here, then have this match, and we actually need to revisit this story and have another backstage or another interview later. That allocates a lot of TV time. And sometimes it doesn't make very, time sometimes could get basically, people don't get as much time as they want, and it's up to us to kind of make the decisions. What is the important factors to keep the show going, to keep viewers watching, to get the ratings as high as we can? So it's just interesting kind of putting a show together. It's kind of start with the matches, getting in the backstages, in-ring segments, which are a whole, last night we had Dennis Rodman, things that don't involve physicality. They're often, the 1 to 2 on the show. You kind of figure out, like, it's all moving blocks, but the matches are the bricks, everything else is kind of the glue.
Speaking of kind of those different pieces that can be there, CD, obviously we have singles matches, tag matches, battle royals, talking segments, stunts, backstage. What is the hardest as a coach for you, or for coaches in general, do you think, to put together and execute on live television for like a Dynamite?
Probably the most difficult thing would be something like the Anarchy in the Arena matches. Anything that involves leaving the ringside area and going off into wherever you go. Like, for example, I was the coach for Anarchy in the Arena this year when we were in Las Vegas. And the match with 10 different people and people traveling different areas, just the idea of being ready to go from the ring to a camera that's in the upper echelon of the arena, and then going backstage outside where you're fighting in the parking lot, and just having everybody ready. And it's just difficult. The more people you have in a match, the more difficult it is to try and coordinate and communicate with everybody, plus referees, plus medical people, plus camera people. The entirety of like telling everybody, okay, follow this, follow this, follow this, it can be stressful. And so the more intricate these plans sort of get, the harder it is to translate it from the mind of the wrestler, the mind of the coach, to the television screen. That's the difficulty. So, I mean, those are the matches. Anything with multi-men, and then any sort of movement away from ringside, going out into that sort of stuff, that's been the most difficult. But I mean, whenever you get multi-man matches, those are all obviously more difficult, just because, like I said, it's harder to communicate. If a singles match, there's two guys, there's a referee, you can usually sort of convey whatever you need to tell to one person, the referee, and that can be distributed to that talent. But I mean, when you've got 5 guys on a team and it's 5-on-5 or whatever, now it's difficult to get everybody on the same page. Hey, this is happening. We have to go to break early. Oh, this guy's hurt. We have to work around this. Okay, we're going long. We have to cut this moment out. Those are difficult as well. And then in addition, like now factor in the fact that we have so many international talents, guys like Commander and El Quixote Vikingo. Like these guys, we have the difficulty of like trying to tell them, hey, we're going long, and then figure out how to say that in Spanish, or how to figure out how to say it in Japanese to Takeshita. You know, these are all things that...
We recently hired a Spanish-speaking referee for...
This exact reason, yes.
This is one of the reasons that we hired Brandon.
And we have coaches. We have coaches now that also speak Spanish for that reason as well. So I mean, those are the difficulties that we deal with. It's all difficult, but I mean, it's just stages of difficulty. The more you add, the more people you throw in the mix.
To that end, Raphael, is venues open? You know, when we're doing a Dippin' Dots brawl on the concourse, or possibly bleeding on some walls backstage. How do the venues feel about us kind of being everywhere?
Well, you know, they're apprehensive because they're not used to doing this in a run a show of their programming. But we have run-throughs with venue security, venue ops folks to give them a framework. But as Chris mentioned, it can be random and it takes a life of its own. So subsequent to the event, you may get a bill for some damage. You may get some suggestions. We certainly got some candid suggestions from the first Anarchy in the Arena at T-Mobile to this year. So, and we adhered to that. I mean, they're our venue partners. Yeah. They host us. They're world-known facilities, so we want to continue to be invited back. So, there are some challenges, and it's just dialogue. You got to keep it fluid and honest, and you can't hide anything underneath the rug and say, oh, I forgot about that. So obviously one of the biggest things that happen in a show is entrances with exciting music. And in one of your roles, I think a lot of people don't really realize how complicated music licensing rights are. Yes, and that's something that you deal with, Mr. Peck. That's what you came for, right, guys? Hot music licensing talk. Well, just 10:30 a.m. Just to that end, what's an example of something that maybe we had a challenge getting to, and that we were able to finally get a deal to do?
So, I mean, that's a great question, Chris, and really is the bane of my existence on a day-to-day basis is music licensing. It is truly unbelievable how complex it can be, and we have some great partners and some great law firms and some great folks we work with. But the one that I was most proud of that we got cleared was when we had the Rolling Stones song. Mm-hmm. I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And that was one where our firm came back to me and said, listen, tell Tony we're not getting it. It's not happening. And I was like, no, we're going to go for it. They are a firm that's been doing this for like the NFL and other organizations. And they said, listen, Chris, it's been 30 years I've been doing this. We're not getting it. And we went through the process, and holy cow, the approval came through. And boy, I've never seen Tony more excited when I told him that. His eyes just lit up like a Christmas tree. Well, Final Countdown was another one. I was going to say Final Countdown was another one. That was another example. That was one we've gone back and forth and been working with those license rights holders and really been working well before I had actually joined the organization and the Jaguars. But that was one that when that came through, that was, just as a wrestling fan, that was a really cool moment.
What was the shortest? Sorry, go ahead.
No, Chris, I think it's great what you do because it has that extra dimension, that element to our pay-per-views. I mean, we obviously celebrate Brian, Soraya's entrance. I mean, I thought it was one of the highlights of the show.
Agreed, it was awesome.
On Sunday, so kudos to Tony's vision to do that and the extra legwork and the financial commitment and the time in that regard.
Well, and I think
it's a little bit. Yeah. I think that helps and makes us a little different from what's out there.
And I think you said it right. The commitment to putting on that product for the fans and for the people at home. I think that it's a commitment from Tony, and it comes from the top down, and we've put a lot of resources into it. So. And
it's a lot of work because things change quickly. I remember adding the DMX music to one of the stadium stampedes we did.
I won't ruin this. I won't tell any stories out of school, but we had to console one of the participants in that match because they were almost in tears that we couldn't get the song cleared in time. So it is very personal to a lot of the guys, and I get it because they're putting themselves out there. It's their character. So we really go down swinging. I always tell guys, listen, we might not get it. A lot of times, example from this weekend was I think I flew in on Friday and I got a request at 5 Eastern for a song for Sunday, and I go, guys, that's not going to happen. It's 2 days from now. It's definitely one of those cool things, and one of those things as a lawyer where you can watch it happen on screen, where obviously Bryce is counting the thing, but that's my part of the show where I get to look back and go, oh, I did that. That's cool.
And what people don't always realize is because AEW is everywhere, we have the television show. We have it streaming internationally on AEW Plus. We have international television partners. For the pay-per-views, we're showing them in almost 300 movie theaters. We show them in bars and restaurants. Sometimes DVDs come out. There's different rights for every one of these things, where it's different if you're just playing it in the venue for a bunch of people to watch it versus broadcasting it live in the U.S. versus broadcasting it worldwide under everything you can imagine. If a Microsoft Zune is going to play this tomorrow, we've got to have the rights for it.
And there's like numbers of plays, right?
Yes.
Some you can play 100 times, some you get once.
And so I remember the other one was the Sinatra song when we were doing with Jericho and MJF. Yes, and that could be a whole thing. Yes. So you don't want to do. So there's just a lot of hoops to jump through. So it's one of these things that I think a lot of people don't realize. The day of the show, how many hours, tens of hours, or even hundreds of hours go into just making sure that everything is going to be okay for every partner around the world. Because we promise our partners, you can show our show and it's not going to get you in trouble. And that is a tough thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, and on that point too, Chris, we also have to promise the venues because they're letting us play that music too. So I mean, there's a lot of relationships, and again, the TV deals you mentioned, we have to deliver that product, and they have to be able to distribute it, and that might be in, I think the first one of my first TV deals was in Israel, and we have to be able to deliver that product in a worldwide setting, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, welcome back to the Wrestling Hour. We hope you're enjoying creating Dynamite. We're going to get to the conclusion of that in just a little bit. I'm enjoying it thus far. And look, it pulls on the heartstrings a little bit to see specific people up there. Like, obviously, if you watched the show last week, I featured a match from Pat
Buck's my hero.
Pat Buck is the reason why I'm in this seat right now. So I have to give him his flowers. I have to give him his credit. Sometimes he doesn't want to admit that. But you know what?
What?
So in any event, I do enjoy listening to the creative minds creating this show, because there's a lot that goes into it, man. It's not just like, hey, we booked an arena. Cool. Let's just make a card. And hey, let's see what wrestlers can do these moves. No, man.
Shout out to Raphael Morphy. Right? Who's he's just wrapped up with AEW after 5 years there. Unsung hero for sure.
Yeah,
did not get the credit. Some of the stuff on the internet of these people who don't understand what it is to book a building. I can tell you personally, as somebody who's booked venues before, it's not an easy job. I can only imagine on his
four different sports. You know what I mean? Like maybe sometimes if it's a stadium, if it's an
incredible
arena.
Job, great guy, personal friend of mine. Does not care for you.
He doesn't know who I am.
Well, there you go.
You know who I do like?
Pat Buck.
Besides Pat Buck. Big fan of Jerry Lynn. My man, Jerry Lynn.
Who
got a picture on the AEW website because of me. It was unbelievable how I started this trending thing on Twitter.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wrestling Hour where Dave Sturchio lies
I obviously remember. I remember the story, so I was just poking fun a little bit. But yeah, Jerry Lynn's great. Met him a bunch of times. He's one of the producers back there. I mean, it was great to see, and still is great to see. You're going to see the conclusion of it. But first, somebody who really, really likes you as of late. We're going to throw it to Tommy D, who's in the control room right now. What?
If I may.
I mean, you've publicly shamed the kid, and all he's trying to do is promote.
I have not publicly
our
shamed.
brand.
I have not publicly shamed him just because we did a WrestlePro show, and Tommy D was on camera loitering outside of the men's room the entire time. And if you think I'm wrong, go right now to our YouTube channel and check that out, or go to watchonpremiere.com.
And you know what?
Maybe check out that event.
Maybe you could see one of those matches right here on the Wrestling Hour in the coming weeks. Who knows? But
you could.
Yeah, but in any event,
you will.
Tommy D.
No. If I may, Tommy
you may not.
D, you have said some very hurtful things about me
in response to you.
I've never said an untrue word about you, Tommy D. Never would. I would never try and hurt you the way you've tried to hurt me.
You talked about the man's head shape.
Yes, I'm trying to help him. I'm trying to help. There are things you can do. You can wear there. It's like a helmet type thing, and it'll mold.
God. My God! We're not doing
saying.
this. Tommy D,
I'm just
my
saying.
man, take it away. Tell us what you can find right here on the YouTube channel of Premier Streaming Network. Take it away, Tom.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Let's take a look at what we got going on right here at Premier Streaming Network. Rolling off into 2024, Gabby has on a very special guest this week, Damage Control's own Bailey. Check it out right here on Premier Streaming YouTube. And of course, I'm going to have to put over our very own podcast, The Fight Factory, this week as we discuss AEW's Battle of the Belts. And lastly, don't forget to check out House of Glory's Brace for Impact as Mike Santana defends his belt against Josh Alexander. Well, that's all that we have this week. Be sure to check out all of our content right here on the Premier Streaming YouTube channel. Back to you, Josh, and the real award-winning commentator, Dave Sturchio.
Thank you very much, Tommy D.
Don't care for you.
I mean, look.
I don't care for you.
You did this to yourself. You did this to yourself.
I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
this guy's trying to get himself over on me. He's trying to ride my coattails.
First of all, nobody's riding anybody's coattails.
No, he's trying to ride my coattails.
The guy was hired to do a job, and he's doing that job.
By whom?
Maybe me. I don't know.
There you go.
Well, listen, I'm just trying to give opportunities
to
people that deserve opportunities.
Do you mind if I bring my buddy along?
Much like
from Fight Factory.
Thanks for the plug.
Available on watchonpremiere.com, the Premier YouTube channel.
The highest rated watched show other than Gabby
You
AF.
do know. What? You do know.
And us.
That views can go higher than 60, right?
First of all.
I'm kidding.
No.
65.
There's been times we've hit those triple digits, let me tell you.
Wow.
And again, we're the highest rated show on watchonpremiere.com.
Oh, you're high, all right. Look, speaking of...
No, that's RVD, which you can find also on this network. But listen, we want to talk about opportunities. We gave one to Tommy D, right? Talking about opportunities, AEW has given some of these stars that were... I mean, look, you could talk to me about ratings and attendance and all this other crap. I don't want to hear it.
No.
Because here we are 5 years later.
We just established you don't care about the ratings of your own shows. You know, it doesn't matter. The reality is they're still here. They're still kicking. AEW is
not going anywhere.
No, it's an alternative.
Yes.
And some people will question whether or not it's a true alternative. Well, you have an option. You can watch one or the other, or guess what? You can watch both.
Get out of here. Stop it.
Guess what? You could watch none. If you hate it, don't hate watch.
Get
just
right
stop.
out of town. Well,
stop.
I've been trying to say that for years now, 5 years now. If you don't like it,
except for this
don't
show.
watch it. Yeah, well, except this show
If you don't like this show, keep watching.
And like it, and subscribe, and do all the fun things you're supposed to do
That's
on
right.
the old YouTube. Anyway.
And the new YouTube.
Back to my good dear friend Pat Buck and the rest of the amazing panel that creates Dynamite. The conclusion right now.
Hi guys. My name is Jake. I study television production myself, so this is fascinating. So thank you guys for all the hard work that you guys do every week. I think my question is for Christopher Daniels. You being the leader of talent relations, we all know a prominent wrestling legend who held this type of role in the past, Jim Ross. I just want to ask if did JR give you like any prominent advice that sticks out to you in terms of this type of role, or maybe like managing talent and booking flights and like managing payroll and all that?
Honestly, the main advice that JR gave me was just to sort of put yourself in the shoes of the guy you're speaking to. You know, I try to take into account what the person that I'm dealing with has gone through and is going through, to try and understand the issues that he's having, if he's having any sort of problems, so that I don't want to just dismiss any problems that he has outright. I try to put myself in his position, and I think it's easy for me as someone who's come up through wrestling to sort of look at problems that a wrestler might have and try to find solutions and work with that person to help him out in that respect. And that was something that JR had given me, is just, you know, put yourself in their shoes and try to be compassionate in that respect. And I feel like I try to help as many of our guys out as possible when these issues come up, and JR was the one who sort of gave that to me.
And to the lawyer in the group here, Chris, do you have any outlandish requests that anyone has asked for without saying any names that we just said no to?
Absolutely not.
I'm pretty sure MJF requested a solid gold jet at one point. Please go ahead. Next question.
Hi, my name is Pat. I am somewhat involved in the wrestling business, looking to get involved a little more. So what is the best piece of advice you could give somebody looking to go into the wrestling business as far as backstage etiquette, and how do you apply that to the work that you guys are doing in AEW?
So I'll throw this one to Bryce maybe, because you're someone who came from the independent scene and are now working backstage at AEW.
When I had more time and energy in my younger years, I used to do seminars, and kind of the crux of that, the through line is, the more hats you wear, the harder it is to get rid of you. So you never know what's going to come up on a day. You never, like, at the beginning of AEW, it turned out there was no one that knew how to, or was readily available to format or time the show. And QT Marshall, right, was just like, I'll figure it out. I'll learn how to do it. He formatted the show for years. He made himself indispensable. He found out something else for him to do that would help keep him around. So me, God forbid I break both my arms in a car accident, I can't referee, I'll still be able to, like, you know, nose the laptops and book flights and hotels. Like, it will make it harder to get rid of me. And I think that is what we've talked about. There's always unpredictability on show day. Sometimes there's 30 plates in the air, sometimes there's only 3. That's a good day. But the more equipped you are to keep one of the plates spinning or let it break if that's the case that day, makes you more valuable and more indispensable to a team. And I will shout out Chris Harrington as a jack of all trades on show day. You know, sometimes he comes and he says it feels like there's nothing to do, and then before he's left, he's put out 4 fires or dealt with 4 things.
I have been the Chompy Wrangler for Shark Week many weeks, where it was all about all the rules for Chompy and the guy in the shark suit, how are we going to do this, that, or the other thing. And
that sounds silly, but that was a whole day of Chris's life.
That was a whole year of my life, really. But I think to Bryce's point there's a lot of smaller jobs that are not always glamorous that are important to us, whether it's someone who's counting T-shirts, someone who needs to be driving talent, someone who needs to be checking all the facts and figures and making sure that they're right, so everything on the television that we don't misspell handles of things.
Dealing with state athletic commissions,
yep.
Which is a totally unglamorous, not exciting thing that Chris has people that help him with as well, that, you know, MJF rolls up at the arena, hasn't had to worry about it once because someone just took care of it for him. Like that type of stuff.
So I would always say having good business skills is really important. So knowing how to use a spreadsheet, have a driver's license, have a passport. These are really important things that sometimes you'll meet people that don't have it, and then suddenly they'll be like, I want to be a driver, and they don't have a credit card. And then you say, well, that's going to make it tough to rent a car then. So I think that's the biggest part, and I think the other part is just having building the right relationships with people. I think Pat could speak to, we've brought in some people in the past, and maybe their dream is to be here, but we're saying this is what we have an opportunity for. Are you interested in doing this?
I think in a practical sense, because a lot of people ask me that question too, or just ask that question in general. First off, living in a part of the country or world that has access to enough wrestling shows. Certain places don't. If you live in Chicago, you're good. Northeast, you're good. Associate yourself, one, with a wrestling school, even if your goal is not to be in the ring. The other thing is there's enough wrestling shows on Friday and Saturday night anywhere. If you're really like, I want to be in this business, I want to make a career of it, and you're home on Friday and Saturday night, you don't want to be in it. So you have to put the miles in to literally, and even if you're not booked on a show, you're like, I want to check out this show, I want to be a part of it. If you have to drive there and actually buy a ticket to be there, and then maybe you can introduce yourself to one or two people, whether it be as a worker or someone that just wants to work around wrestling, you just have to put yourself out there, and you have to guard your reputation, meaning you only get one of them, so you got to be professional and, don't be that guy, but just, you have to really be prepared to put the miles in and put the time in, and oftentimes enough, and I get it, families, work, stuff like that, it takes a huge sacrifice. But again, if you're home on Friday and Saturday night, you really want to be in wrestling, and there's a show 3.5 hours away, even if you're not going to do anything, just break down the ring, because independents are always looking for people to help break down the ring. Go do it. And it's going to, it may not be appetizing after doing it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Stick with it. That's all I can say.
And I would just say having discretion is important, and having the appropriate business sense of when you're approaching people. Finding us in the hotel is probably not the best time for you to be giving us a resume. That's where we live. We want that privacy. So, these kind of interactions are much better. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do one last question here.
Hey there. I was just curious if you could give any insight on the stage design of the shows, like Dynamite going from the tunnels to the screens, or the really impressive collision set, or even Double or Nothing this year, you had the pillar of poker chips, which I thought was really clever. So, whether it's graphically or just easier for the crew or what have you.
We could have 40 more people on the stage right now, and each one of them would have a unique role. If you go to Nashville right now, we have motion graphic artists, we have still artists, we have directors. When you go out and deal with our production team, you have the artisans who are making the props, you have the people that are doing the stage direction, you have the people that are the art directors there. And I think Tony also loves to have visions that tie to the different shows. So when we did Full Gear, we did the gear with Adam Page, but it was also the gears themselves. And what's great is when we fabricate a lot of these things, then we can reuse them year after year after year, which we love. The other part is always a logistical concern. When we went from the tunnels to the flat screens that we have here, we actually saved enough space that we got rid of an entire truck. And that savings in the truck was hundreds of thousands of dollars when you count it over this lifetime. And so that's big for us, is just that recalibration. It takes a lot of work, though, to do that. And so a lot of props to Tony will come up with an idea, and he'll tell Greg Warner about it, and then the next steps will happen. And it can be a rigging concern. So sometimes we've gone to Raph and say, hey, we want to do a cage match. You can't do a cage match in every single arena.
I mean, we were, it was a question mark where we're going to do Blood and Guts. We were fortunate enough to get TD Garden this year, which was fabulous. We are going back again. Just a little tease there. Won't give you the date, but it was a discussion. But we had 3 or 4 or 5 options, as Chris mentioned, and that set design too. Especially when we're at capacity, it helped us out this year too. We were able to sell some more seats, which obviously helps the bottom line in that regard. So that's always part of the mix, along with the creative vision. Starting with Tony, Mike Mansuri, and our production team in terms of executing it. How to come to fruition.
And so you'll see the different color schemes every year. We're trying to do refreshes on the color schemes. We work very closely with the network on that to kind of do those different changes. And even just if you look very carefully at the lower thirds that people come out to, on Dynamite, you'll see a lot of those quippy Adam Page has been drinking. Collision, you'll see mostly the title holders and very little else. And so just coming up with all those specific things, I'll tell you, there's a person for every role there. There's not just the person who does the graphics, there's the person who checks the graphics. There's the people that are putting in the script, and then there's the people that are checking the script, and it's amazing the level of detail there. And so, unfortunately, a lot of those artistic graphic designers are not people that are here on the stage right now. But I'll tell you, we have great respect and love for them to be able to do that. And it's always funny because they're taking out ladders and spray painting them black or making a pink coffin or whatever it is. People always are there doing it, and it's inspiring because a lot of times we're asking questions like, how much weight can you stand on a coffin on that no funeral director has ever had to answer before? Well, I think we are all done with our panel here. Can I get a round of applause for all of our participants?
All right, we hope you've enjoyed creating Dynamite, which was, again, one of the stage shows at Starrcast VI. You can find the entire... Who are you interrupting now?
No, I just got a text message.
From?
Oh, it's a group text. That's kind of cool.
No, I hate group text.
This is Tony Khan, Chris Harrington.
Oh, the whole crew, huh?
Pat Buck is even on here, too. Please tell Dave, thank you
for
all the kind words.
Hey, that's what we...
However, there is not a thing he could say to change our opinion of him. Wow. Wow.
I mean, you know what, Tony?
Yikes.
Listen, can I call you Tony? What I'm assuming is you're a green texter, which even makes me even more angry.
First of all, let's not put that on him, okay? God forbid he were a green bubble guy.
If you're a green bubble person, you can't be trusted.
I have one of them in my life.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well,
Matt Mangle.
Mangle?
From Talking with Friends.
Oh, God.
Matt Mangle's a green bubble guy.
Oh, jeez.
Do you have any idea what it's like trying to organize? That's why there hasn't been a new Talking with Friends episode in like a year. Because we're like, hey guys, we like, what? What?
I don't see any Talking with Friends awards here, so obviously the show didn't do as well as Shernoff.
Well, that's because I don't give myself awards.
You do. You do exactly that, actually.
Nope.
You literally give yourself awards. I actually watched the clip of one young, spry Josh Shernoff say, and the award goes to me. You gave it to yourself.
I presented it to myself. What an honor that was, by the way.
God.
I was shocked.
It's like...
Almost fell out of my chair when that happened. But it was great. It was really great. It was a wonderful experience. But Matt Mangle's a green bubble guy.
Well, from what I heard the green bubbles are going away. That's what I heard.
What?
Rumor has it that they're going to try to link up
because they're
just behind the times.
Oh, because it's hurting their feelings.
It has to. I won't talk to a green texter in a group chat.
Hey guys, you want to do a you want to do an episode of Talking with Friends? Calvin, yep, blue bubble. Fred, yep, blue bubble.
And if he likes it with a thumbs up, you'll get a text each an individual.
3 days later, Matt Mangle likes, hey guys, you want to do an episode? And we're like, Mangle, it's been 3 days. We missed the window. We can't record now.
Unfortunately.
Guys, the text message just came through.
Oh, well, welcome to AOL 5.0. But anyway, look, I hope you guys enjoyed.
You were talking about Tony Khan.
I like Tony Khan. I think Tony Khan is what you need in wrestling. I know a lot of people have whatever opinion. You might like him, you might not like him, you might like his decisions, you may not like his decisions. But what I will say about Tony Khan is that he is fully invested in each and every moment of All Elite Wrestling. Everything has to go through Tony Khan because it's his baby. And sometimes, just like this show is my baby, I want to make sure that everything that goes through this show goes through me to make it as good as humanly possible, which starts with potentially removing you.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying any attention. What did you just say?
Exactly.
I do want to say something, though. I have to come clean to our audience here.
This is going to be good. I'm on the edge of my seat here.
That text message did not say the things that I said it said.
I could tell you that. I mean, I could have told you that. The world watching right now.
I was having a little fun at Dave Sturchio's expense.
There's a shocking change of events.
And will you give me a moment to just...
I'm trying to sift through the lies as you go.
Will you give me that kindness to allow me to speak?
It's just a bunch of flim-flam at this point, man.
Oh, don't you flim-flam me.
I'm just saying what it is.
Don't you flim-flam me. Listen. Tony Khan, bad news for you. No idea who you are.
Probably not.
If Tony Khan knew who you were and saw you and me together, you'd be looking at the brand new commentary team for Dynamite.
Are you wearing the the lucha mask while you do the commentary or no?
Cover this. This is my moneymaker.
Same here. So
I'm covering that.
I feel bad for anybody who has to cover their face the entire time.
I've seen what he looks like without the mask. The mask is a good choice.
Shout out to Excalibur as well. All right, look, it's been a fun episode. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Listen, also, just know this. On watchuppremiere.com, along with YouTube, you could find all of the Starrcast events. So if you were interested in this one, guess what? There's a whole lot more. One of my favorite stage shows from that event was 1,000% Ruckus and his entire music, AEW music show that he had. And because of that show, I wound up on the plane home. I downloaded pretty much every single AEW song that I knew he was doing because it was just that
Mark. Good. What? Sorry, I had something in my throat.
That's Ruckus. Mikey Ruckus.
Mikey, I know Mikey Ruckus.
Not Mark.
Personal friend.
Not Mark Ruckus. Mike Ruckus.
Who's Mark Ruckus?
I have no idea. You just said his name. I have no idea who that was. But anyway, you can check out all of those stage shows
right here. You want to air that stage show in a couple weeks?
Why the hell not?
I'm going to make a note.
Make a note of that.
We're going to talk to the head honchos.
Anyway, we hope you enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching today on The Wrestling Hour. For Dave Sturchio, Josh Shernoff, we will see you guys next time.